There is a moment, one single awful moment that changes everything. For Naomi Carter, that moment came on a Tuesday night in November, when the rain was hammering the windows of her apartment and her phone buzzed with a text that stopped her heart cold. The text was from her sister, Deja. It said, "I left the baby with you. Don't call me, don't look for me. Please, Naomi, just take care of her, I'm sorry." Naomi read those words 3 times. Then she set down her phone and walked down the hallway to her spare bedroom. She opened the door, and there in the middle of the bed, wrapped in a pink blanket, was a baby girl, tiny, perfect, sound asleep. A handwritten note was pinned to the blanket. It said one name. Arvid. Naomi stood in that doorway for a long time, long enough for the rain to ease, long enough for the baby to stir and let out a soft, sleepy sound. Then Naomi Carter, 26 years old, single, no children, working doubles at Memorial General Hospital, as a pediatric nurse walked into that room, picked up that baby, and made a decision that would cost her everything she had and give her the one thing she never knew she needed. She would keep her, she would raise her, and she would not call the police. Not yet. Not until she understood why her sister ran. Let's go back. Back to before the baby, back to before the rain, back to the beginning of the story that nobody in the Carter family wanted to tell out loud. Naomi and Deja Carter grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, in a small house on Glendale Street with their grandmother, Mama Ruth. Their mother, Cassandra, had been in and out of their lives since Naomi was 5 and Deja was 3. She had problems that Mama Ruth described as the kind that don't fix easy. Cassandra would disappear for months at a time, then show up at the door smelling like cigarettes and apology, crying and promising to do better. She never did better, but she tried, and the girls loved her anyway, the way children always love their broken parents completely and without condition. Mama Ruth was the rock. She worked at the county hospital as a food service worker for 32 years. She got up before the sun and came home after dark and never once complained. She made biscuits from scratch on Sunday mornings and sang in the church choir on the third pew from the front. She told Naomi and Deja every single day that they were going to be somebody. "God didn't bring you this far to drop you," Mama Ruth used to say. "You hear me? He didn't bring you this far to drop you." Naomi believed her. She studied hard, got a scholarship to University of Memphis, and finished her nursing degree in 4 years. She was disciplined, focused, the kind of person who made lists and checked off every item. Deja was different. Deja was fire, gorgeous and restless and bursting with something that couldn't be contained. She sang like an angel and painted like a dream and fell in love so hard and so fast that every relationship left bruises on her heart. She started college but quit after a year. She waitressed, then worked at a salon, then decided she was going to be a music manager, then forgot about that and got into real estate school. Deja could do anything she put her mind to, Mama Ruth used to say, shaking her head with a smile. The problem is she keeps changing her mind. They were close, Naomi and Deja, different as fire and water, but close. They called each other every Sunday. They argued about everything and forgave each other within the hour. Naomi was the one Deja called when she was in trouble, and Deja was the one Naomi called when she was lonely. That was the deal. That was always the deal. Until Marcus. Marcus Webb came into Deja's life like a summer thunderstorm, fast, loud, and beautiful. He was 32, 6'2", with a smile that could stop traffic. He ran a small construction company in Nashville and drove a black pickup truck and wore cologne that Deja said she could smell from across a room. He found Deja at a mutual friend's birthday party and spent the entire night talking to her and only her. Deja called Naomi the next morning, barely awake, voice still thick with excitement. "Naomi, I think I found him," Deja said. "Found who?" Naomi asked. "The one," Deja replied. "I know how I sound. I know what you're going to say. Just trust me this time." Naomi did not say what she was going to say. She had learned with Deja that some warnings landed and some didn't. She just said, "Tell me about him." And Deja did, for 45 minutes. Marcus Webb seemed good at first. He remembered things Deja mentioned in passing: her favorite ice cream, the name of her third-grade teacher, the song she said reminded her of Mama Ruth. He surprised her with flowers. He drove 4 hours to Memphis just to take her to dinner on her birthday. Naomi met him twice in the first 6 months. He was charming, attentive. He looked at Deja like she was something precious. But something about Marcus made Naomi's nurse brain go quiet and watchful. She couldn't name it. It was something in the way he answered questions, smooth but not quite direct. Something in the way he laughed a little too easily when Deja teased him, like he'd practiced the laugh. She told herself she was being too protective. Deja was 24. She could handle herself. She was wrong. 8 months after they met, Deja called Naomi at 2 in the morning. "I'm pregnant," Deja said. Her voice was flat, empty. Naomi sat up straight in her bed. "Okay," she said carefully. "Okay, how do you feel?" "I don't know." Long pause. "Marcus said he's happy. He said he wants to do this together. He said he wants to get a place in Nashville." "What do you want?" Naomi asked. "Silence." "I don't know," Deja said again. I need you to tell me everything is going to be okay, Naomi." "Everything is going to be okay," Naomi said. She meant it when she said it. Deja moved to Nashville 3 weeks later. She and Marcus got a 2-bedroom apartment near Midtown. Naomi drove up to help her unpack. The apartment was nice new furniture, good light, a kitchen. Deja said she was going to actually cook in this time. "You seem happy," Naomi said, watching her sister arrange things on the kitchen counter with careful, loving hands. "I am," Deja said, then she paused. "Mostly." "What's the mostly about?" Naomi asked. Deja shook her head. "Nothing, I'm just adjusting." Naomi almost pushed. She almost said, "Deja, tell me what the mostly means," because something in her sister's eyes when she said that word mostly looked like a door that was trying to close before anyone could see inside. But she let it go. She would spend a long time regretting that. The pregnancy was hard. Deja got sick often. She was tired in a way that went deeper than the body. She still called Naomi every Sunday, but the calls got shorter, less giggly, more careful. Marcus, Deja said, was working a lot, long hours, came home tired. Sometimes he was impatient. Sometimes he said things that landed wrong. "Like what kind of things?" Naomi asked. "Just stressed person things," Deja said. "It's nothing, Naomi, don't make it into something." Naomi stopped asking. She sent care packages instead: prenatal vitamins, a good book, a card that said, "You are stronger than you know." Ava Ruth Webb was born on a warm August morning. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, a full head of dark hair, perfect lungs. The nurses said. She announced herself to the whole floor. Naomi drove to Nashville the next day to see them. She held Ava in the hospital room and felt something she hadn't expected: a rush of love so strong it made her eyes sting. This little person, this tiny, brand new person who had Deja's nose and somehow Mama Ruth's expression when she was asleep. "She's perfect, Deja," Naomi said. Deja was looking at Ava with an expression Naomi couldn't quite read. Love was in it, but so was something else. Fear maybe, or exhaustion that had settled in too deep. "Yeah," Deja said softly, "she is." Marcus was there. He held the baby with confidence. He shook Naomi's hand and said he was glad she came. He ordered food from the good Thai place down the street and laughed at the right moments and seemed, by every measure, like a man who had his life together. Naomi drove home telling herself everything was fine. 6 weeks later, Deja left Ava in Naomi's spare bedroom and disappeared. If you're already invested in Naomi and Ava's story, and something tells me you are, hit that like button right now and subscribe. This story is just getting started, and you do not want to miss what comes next. The first 72 hours after Naomi found Ava were the longest of her life. She did not call the police. She told herself she would tomorrow. She said tomorrow if she hadn't heard from Deja. But tomorrow came and went, and Deja's phone went straight to voicemail. No texts, no social media posts, nothing, like she had simply stepped off the edge of the world. Naomi called Marcus. He picked up on the second ring, his voice careful and too calm. "I know," he said, before she could even speak. "She called me too. She told me she was leaving. I don't know where she went, Naomi, I swear to you." "She left your baby, Marcus," Naomi said. Her voice was steady, nurse steady, the voice she used when a situation was bad and someone needed to hear calm. "She left a 6-week-old baby." "I know that." His voice cracked just slightly. "Look, I can come get Ava, I want to." "No," Naomi said. It came out before she thought it. "No," she said again, quieter but just as firm. "Not yet. Let me make sure she's stable and settled. Then we'll figure out next steps. But right now she's with me, she's safe." There was a long pause. "Okay," Marcus said finally. "Okay, but Naomi, I need to know she's okay. Can you send me photos?" "I'll send photos," Naomi said. She hung up and stood in her kitchen for a moment with her hand pressed flat to the counter, just breathing. Then she went to check on Ava. The thing about newborns is they do not care about your crisis. They do not care that your sister has vanished and your life has been turned inside out. They need feeding every 2 to 3 hours. They need diaper changes and burping and skin to skin and the particular way you hold them so they feel safe. Naomi was a pediatric nurse. She knew Barbies. She had cared for dozens of them in the NICU, in clinics, in the chaotic blur of hospital hallways. But caring for someone else's baby in a clinical setting, and caring for your missing sister's baby alone in a 1-bedroom apartment at 3 in the morning, those are two completely different things. The first week, Naomi barely slept. She called in sick to work, something she had done exactly twice in 5 years of nursing. She sat by Ava's little bouncer and watched her chest rise and fall and felt a ferocious, terrifying love building in her chest like pressure behind a dam. "I don't know what to do with you," Naomi whispered to the baby one night. "I don't know how this ends, but I'm not going anywhere, okay? I'm right here." Ava blinked at her with dark, unfocused eyes. Then she grabbed Naomi's finger with her tiny fist, and Naomi laughed and cried at the same time. On day 9, Naomi got a text from an unknown number. "She's alive, she's okay, she just needs time. Please don't call the police. Please trust me, D." It was enough. It was not enough. Naomi sat with it. She prayed over it. She called her best friend, Keisha Watkins, and read it to her, and Keisha, a family court paralegal with no filter and a heart of pure gold, said exactly what Naomi was afraid to say herself. "Naomi, girl, you are currently raising a baby that is not legally yours, by a mother who has vanished, whose father could show up at any moment with the law behind him, and the only thing standing between you and a very bad situation is a text from an unknown number." "I know," Naomi said. "So what are you going to do?" Keisha asked. Naomi looked across the room to where Ava was asleep in the little travel crib she'd borrowed from a coworker. "I'm going to get a lawyer," Naomi said, "and I'm going to find my sister." The lawyer was a woman named Patricia Holt, 55 years old, silver locks, an office full of African art, and the kind of reputation that made people lower their voices when they said her name. Keisha found her. Keisha always found the right person. Patricia listened to everything without writing a single note. When Naomi finished, Patricia leaned back in her chair and looked at her for a long moment. "Let me be straight with you," Patricia said, "because that is the only thing I know how to be. Right now, the baby's father has parental rights. If he shows up with a custody filing, you have no legal standing to keep this child. Your sister leaving her with you does not create guardianship." "I know," Naomi said. But Patricia continued, "If you file for emergency temporary guardianship, citing abandonment and the mother's whereabouts being unknown, a judge may grant it. It buys time. It gives you something legal to stand on while we figure out the rest of this." "Do it," Naomi said. "It also means going on record," Patricia said. It means a process. It means eventually Marcus Webb is going to get a notification. Naomi nodded. I know. You sure you want to do this? Patricia asked. Because once we start, there's no quiet way out. Naomi thought about Ava's fist around her finger. She thought about the look on Deja's face in that hospital room, the fear that lived underneath the love. I'm sure, Naomi said. The emergency guardianship was filed on a Thursday. By Saturday, Marcus Webb called Naomi with a different voice than the one she'd heard before. No crack, no warmth, something colder and harder underneath. You want to tell me what you think you're doing, Marcus said. Taking care of my niece, Naomi said, the way her mother asked me to. That baby is my daughter, Marcus said. His voice was rising now. You had no right. Her mother left her with me, Naomi said, calm as a stone wall. In writing, I have a legal process underway to ensure she's protected. If you want to discuss access, call my attorney. She gave him Patricia Holt's number. Then she hung up. Then she sat down on her kitchen floor with her back against the cabinets and let herself shake for exactly 5 minutes. Then she stood up, washed her face, and went to feed Ava. The guardianship was granted 3 weeks later. Temporary, conditional, a fragile legal umbrella over a situation that could still collapse at any moment. But it was something, it was hers. Naomi went back to work. She arranged for a trusted daycare near the hospital, a woman named Gloria Hayes, who had been watching children in her midtown apartment for 20 years and who took one look at Ava and said, "Don't you worry, I got her." Life found a rhythm, an exhausting, beautiful, terrifying rhythm. And then, 4 months after Deja disappeared, Naomi's phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. She answered. Naomi. One word, one voice, and Naomi's whole body went still. It was Deja. Where are you? Naomi asked. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I'm in Atlanta, Deja said. She sounded thin, like someone who had been doing hard work in a small space for a long time. I'm okay. I'm in a program, a counseling program for domestic. She stopped. Naomi closed her eyes. For domestic violence survivors, Deja finished. Her voice broke on the last word. Naomi didn't speak for a moment. The pieces were clicking into place, one by one. The flatness in Deja's voice during the pregnancy, the careful way she described Marcus's moods, the mostly happy, the shortened phone calls, the walls that had gone up slowly, the way walls always go up when someone is ashamed of what's happening behind them. Deja, Naomi said, how long? A long pause. Since about 4 months in, Deja said quietly. It wasn't. It started small, words you know, and then it wasn't small anymore. Naomi pressed her free hand flat against her chest, like she could hold herself together that way. Why didn't you tell me? Naomi asked. Because you would have come in like a hurricane, Deja said, and somehow, in the middle of everything, she almost laughed a small, broken sound. You would have shown up with a plan and a lawyer and a speech, and I wasn't ready. I was scared, Naomi. I was so scared, and I didn't know how to say it. You could have called me from the floor, Deja, anytime, any hour. I know, Deja said. I know that now. Silence. How's she? Deja asked. Her voice went soft and careful around the edges. How's Ava? She's beautiful, Naomi said. She's sitting up on her own now. She laughed for the first time 2 weeks ago. She has Mama Ruth's frown when she's thinking hard about something. Deja made a sound that was somewhere between a sob and a laugh. Can I see her? On a call, not yet in person, I'm not ready, I'm still. Yes, Naomi said, immediately, no hesitation. Yes, tonight I'll set it up. Naomi, Deja said. Yes. Thank you for not giving up on her, for not giving up on me. Naomi sat in her car in the hospital parking lot, long past when she should have gone in for her shift, and cried in a way she hadn't allowed herself to cry since that first terrible night. Then she wiped her face, called in to say she'd be 5 minutes late, and went to do her job. 7 months after Ava came into her life, Naomi Carter had developed a very specific morning routine. 5:45 a.m. alarm. She was always awake before it. She had become one of those people who woke up before alarms, and she was not entirely sure how she felt about that. 5:50 check on Ava, feed if needed, change, cuddle if there was time. 6:30 shower, pack the diaper bag, make coffee strong enough to survive what was coming. 7:10 drop Ava at Miss Gloria's. 7:45 arrive at Memorial General and become Nurse Carter, who was excellent at her job and had absolutely no chaos happening at home. It was a good system. Naomi Carter was a woman who trusted systems. So it was particularly inconvenient when the chaos came to the hospital. It was a Wednesday in March, 11 months after Ava arrived, and Naomi was coming off a 12-hour shift. She was standing at the nurse's station trying to remember if she'd eaten lunch. She had not when a man walked up to the desk. He was tall, broad-shouldered, a few years older than her, maybe early 30s. He wore a dark blue jacket over a gray shirt and carried a manila folder under his arm, and he had the careful posture of someone who was trying very hard not to look like he was looking for something. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm looking for Naomi Carter. I was told she's a nurse here." Naomi stared at him. "I'm Naomi Carter," she said. He looked startled, then he looked relieved, then quickly he rearranged his face into something professional. "Ms. Carter, I'm Devin Holloway. I'm a licensed social worker assigned to Ava Webb's case by the court. I've been trying to reach you for the past week. I left messages with your attorney." "Patricia said she'd forward your contact information," Naomi said, already very tired. "I've had a complicated few weeks. Come on, let's find somewhere to sit." Devin Holloway looked around the busy hallway and nodded. "After you," he said. They sat in a small family consultation room that smelled like hand sanitizer and old magazines. Naomi was still in her scrubs. She had not eaten. She was operating on approximately 4.5 hours of sleep. She was aware of all of this. She was also aware that she did not care, because whatever this man was here to tell her, she needed to hear it clearly. "The court has asked me to conduct a formal home study," Devin said, setting the folder on the table between them. "As part of the guardianship review, they want to assess the environment where Ava is currently living. Make sure she's stable, safe, developing well, that kind of thing." "She is," Naomi said. "I'm sure she is," Devin said carefully, not condescending, just careful. "But the court process requires it to be documented. I'd like to schedule a visit to your home. I'll also need to speak with the daycare provider, review your financial situation, your work schedule, and your support network." "And this affects the custody case?" Naomi asked. "The home study is submitted to the judge and becomes part of the record, yes," Devin said. "It can influence the outcome." Naomi nodded slowly. "What happens with Marcus's petition? He's filed for full custody." "I'm aware," Devin said. "I'm required to conduct a home study on his situation as well. I haven't done that one yet." He paused. "Ms. Carter, I want to be straight with you. I don't have a conclusion already. I'm here to gather information, that's it. My job is the baby's well-being, not anyone's preferences." Naomi studied him. He had steady eyes. He didn't look away. She'd learned in nursing that you could tell a lot about a person by whether they could hold eye contact when the conversation was hard. "Okay," she said. "When do you want to do the visit?" "Whenever works for you," he said. "I can work around your schedule." "Saturday morning," Naomi said. 9 a.m. I'll make sure Ava's there." "Saturday at 9 works perfectly," Devin said. He wrote it in his notes. She noticed his handwriting was very neat. She noticed, also, that he had kind hands. She told herself that was irrelevant. Things are about to get complicated in ways Naomi did not plan for. If you're hooked, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss the rest. And drop a comment, whose side are you on so far? The home visit was not what Naomi expected. She had spent Friday deep cleaning everything within a 5-foot radius of anything Devon Holloway might look at. She had organized Ava's corner of the living room, the little bouncer, the play mat, the books stacked in color order because she had been operating on low sleep for 11 months, and color-coding books was the kind of decision that made complete sense at the time. Keisha came over Saturday morning for moral support and immediately rearranged everything Naomi had arranged. "Why are the board books sorted by color?" Keisha asked. "Because," Naomi started. "Naomi, leave it alone, Keisha." "I'm leaving them in a more natural arrangement," Keisha said, which was Keisha's way of saying she was doing whatever she wanted. Devon Holloway arrived at 9 on the dot. He knocked 3 times, evenly spaced. Naomi opened the door and he was standing there in jeans and a flannel shirt, folder in hand, looking somehow less official than he had at the hospital, which was more unsettling, not less. "Come in," Naomi said. He came in. Ava was on the play mat in the living room, discovering that her feet were attached to her body and apparently finding this very exciting. Devon Holloway stopped. He looked at Ava. Something shifted in his expression, professional distance making room, just for a moment, for something warm and human. "She's working on it," Naomi said. "How old is she now?" he asked. "Almost 9 months," Naomi said. "She's trying to crawl." "She's trying to convince her arms and legs to coordinate," Naomi said. "They're not there yet, but they're in talks." Devon looked at her. He smiled, quick, genuine, gone almost immediately. "Sorry," he said, like he was apologizing for smiling, which Naomi found quietly absurd. "Don't be," she said. Keisha, who had been observing all of this from the kitchen doorway, raised one eyebrow approximately 3 miles off her forehead and said absolutely nothing, which was the loudest she'd been all morning. The visit took 2 hours. Devon walked through the apartment carefully, not intrusively looking, nodding, asking questions in a tone that never felt like interrogation. He looked at the baby proofing she'd done, the outlet covers, the cabinet locks, the way the crib was positioned away from the window. He sat with her and talked about her work schedule, her support network, her finances. He was direct about the hard questions. How did she manage a 12-hour nursing shift with a baby? What happened if Ava got sick during a shift? Who was the backup plan? Naomi had answers for all of it. She had built this system carefully. She'd thought through every scenario that a tired, anxious mind could generate at 3 in the morning. At the end, Devon sat across from her in the living room with Ava now in Naomi's lap, chewing on a teething ring with focused determination. "Can I ask you something off the record?" Devon said. Naomi raised an eyebrow. "Can a social worker say off the record?" "I'm asking as a person, not as your caseworker," he said. "Go ahead," she said. "Why'd you do it?" he asked. "You could have called Child Protective Services the night you found her. That would have been the straightforward move. Instead he gestured around the apartment, built a whole life around her." Naomi looked down at Ava. Ava was looking up at her with those big, watchful eyes that seemed to miss absolutely nothing. "Because she's my sister's baby," Naomi said. "Because if the tables were turned, Daja would have done the same. Because she started again. Because when I picked her up that first night, she grabbed my finger, and I couldn't let go." Devon Holloway was quiet for a moment. "That's a good answer," he said. "It's not an answer," Naomi said. "It's just the truth." He nodded. He wrote something in his folder. Naomi decided not to wonder what it said. 3 things happened in the months that followed, and they happened close enough together that later Naomi would remember them as one long, breathless collision. The first thing, Mucker's Webb showed up. Not at her apartment. Patricia had made sure the address wasn't in the public record. He showed up at the hospital. He was waiting in the parking lot when she finished a shift. She saw him leaning against a silver SUV she didn't recognize, and her whole body went to high alert. He looked different than she remembered. Thinner, hollowed out around the eyes, Whether that was guilt or grief or something else, she couldn't say. I just want to talk, Makaz said when she stopped walking. You can talk to my attorney, Naomi said. Naomi, his voice dropped. Please, I know how this looks. I know what Daja told you, but there's things she left out, things that. Makaz, Naomi said. She kept her voice very level. I am aware that every situation has more than one side. I am willing to believe that, but my attorney has asked that we not have direct contact while the custody case is active. So whatever you want to say to me, say it to her. Her number hasn't changed. She walked to her car. Her hands were shaking. She didn't let him see that. She called Patrasha before she even started the engine. The second thing, Deja came home. Not to Nashville, not to Marcus. She came back to Memphis, to Mama Ruth's house in a quiet way, a borrowed car, a duffel bag. She sat at Mama Ruth's kitchen table and cried for an hour while Mama Ruth rubbed her back and said nothing except, "Baby, you're home now, you're home." Naomi drove down the following Sunday. She brought Ava. It was the first time Deja had seen her daughter in almost a year. Naomi had prepared herself for this. She had thought about what she would say, how she would manage the moment, how she would hold space for whatever Deja was feeling without making it about herself. She was completely unprepared for what actually happened. Deja opened the front door, and she saw Ava sitting on Naomi's hip, wearing a yellow onesie, looking around with her big curious eyes, and Deja's face completely fell apart. Not sad apart, something deeper, something that broke and cracked open at the same time. "Hey baby," Deja whispered. "Hey baby girl." Ava looked at this woman she had never met, or rather, had met when she was too young to remember, and did what 9-month-olds sometimes do with strangers. She reached out one small hand, not pulling away, reaching. Deja made a sound like a woman drowning and surfacing at the same time. Naomi passed Ava to her sister. She stepped back. She let the moment be what it needed to be. Later, sitting on Mama Ruth's back porch with coffee and the old familiar smell of the neighbor's roses, Deja said, "She doesn't know me." "She's 10 months old," Naomi said. "She barely knows what a table is." "You know what I mean." "She will," Naomi said. "If you stay, she will." "I'm staying," Deja said. "I promise." Naomi looked at her sister, at the thing in her eyes that had always been fire still there, just quieter now, banked, not out. "Okay," Naomi said. The third thing, Devin Holloway called her. This was unexpected. His report was filed. The home study was done. There was no official reason for the call. "I wanted to let you know the study has been submitted," he said. "I can't tell you the details of my findings, but I can tell you that I have no concerns." "Thank you for telling me that," Naomi said. Pause. "How is she doing?" he asked. "Ava, she crawled for the first time 2 days ago," Naomi said. "Like, properly crawled, forward, with coordination. She looked very proud of herself." That's a big milestone," Devin said. Another pause, longer this time. "Mr. Holloway," Naomi said. "Devin," he said. "Devin," she said. She was smiling before she knew she was smiling, which annoyed her. "Did you call me to tell me the report was filed, or did you call to ask about the baby?" "Both." "Both," he said. "Is that a problem?" "No," Naomi said. "No, it's not a problem." Keisha, who was in the next room and had apparently bat ears, appeared silently in the doorway holding a cup of tea and wearing an expression of such gleeful triumph that Naomi had to turn away to keep from laughing. But the light always precedes the storm. The custody hearing was set for 8 weeks away. Patricia was preparing. Deja had agreed to participate to testify about why she left, what she left from, what she was doing now to rebuild. That was the plan. That was the careful, considered legal plan. What nobody planned for was the email that arrived in Naomi's inbox on a Tuesday morning. It was from an address she didn't recognize. The subject line said, "Something you should know about Marcus Webb." She stared at it for a long time, long enough for Ava, in her high chair across the room to start making the specific noise that meant she was done with her breakfast and ready for someone to come acknowledge her. Naomi got up. She cleaned Ava's face. She set her down with the stacking cups she was obsessed with. Then she came back and opened the email. Inside were 3 attachments. The first was a court document, the second was a police report, the third was a photograph. Naomi read the court document first. Then she read it again. Then she sat back and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Marcus Webb had been here before, not this exact situation but close enough. A woman, a custody filing, a restraining order that had eventually been dropped a year and a half ago before he ever met Deja. Someone had kept receipts, and someone had sent them to Naomi. The question was who and why and what she was supposed to do now. Oh, this just got a lot more complicated. Who sent that email? What's really in those documents? And what happens when Marcus finds out Naomi has them? Subscribe right now because episode 3 is where everything comes out and nothing will be the same after it does. Naomi forwarded the email to Patricia Holt before she could second-guess herself. Patricia called within 20 minutes. Where did this come from? Patricia asked. Unknown address, Naomi said. You have any idea who sent it? No. Pause, she could hear Patricia thinking. It's admissible if it's verifiable, Patricia said. The police report is a public record. I can pull that myself. The court document is real. I can confirm that too. The photograph is the interesting one. I'll need to have it looked at. What does this do to the case? Naomi asked. It changes the texture of it, Patricia said carefully. A pattern of behavior is different from an incident. A judge pays attention to patterns. But it also paints a target on my back, Naomi said. If Marcus finds out I have this. He's going to find out, Patricia said. If we use it, he'll know that's the trade. Naomi was quiet. Naomi, Patricia said, this baby needs the most stable, safest environment the court can determine. If these documents contribute to that picture, you have an obligation to use them, not to win, to protect her. I know, Naomi said. Do you want a day to think about it? Patricia asked. No, Naomi said, use them. That night, Naomi put Ava down and then sat on the edge of her bed for a while. The apartment was quiet. The specific quality of quiet that happens when a baby finally goes to sleep and the whole house seems to exhale. She thought about her sister, about the careful way Deja had described those early months with Marcus, the way she'd said it started small, the way she'd said she didn't know how to say it. She thought about the woman in the police report, another woman who hadn't known how to say it until she did. She thought about Ava, asleep in the next room. Ava, who had grabbed her finger on that first terrible night and hadn't let go. And she thought about Devon Holloway, which she told herself was completely beside the point. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from a number she now recognized. Hey, heard the hearing date was set. How are you doing, Devon? She looked at it for a moment. Then she typed back, honestly, I've been better and I've been worse. He replied, that's a very nurse answer. She laughed despite everything. What does a non-nurse answer look like? Something like, I'm terrified, but I'm still standing. She stared at that for a moment, then she typed, yeah, that too. You're going to be okay, he replied, for what it's worth from where I'm standing. She put the phone down, she looked at the ceiling. For what it's worth, she said to no one, it's worth a lot. The morning of the custody hearing, Naomi Carter woke up at 4:43 a.m. and lay in the dark for several minutes, staring at the ceiling. She had not slept well, she had known she would not sleep well. She had prepared for that the way she prepared for everything with a plan. Chamomile tea at 9, phone off by 10, lights out at 10:30. The plan had not helped. She had lain awake anyway, running scenarios in her mind like a simulation she couldn't pause. At 5 a.m. she got up. She made coffee. She went to check on Ava, who was asleep with one arm flung out to the side in the completely chaotic way Barbies slept, like they had thrown themselves at rest and landed. Naomi watched her breathe for a moment. Then she went and put on her sharpest blazer and her most sensible heels and her grandmother's gold earrings, which Mama Ruth had pressed into her hand 2 days ago, and said, "You wear these today. They know how to walk into a room." She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. "Okay," she said to her reflection, "let's go." The courtroom was smaller than she expected. Pale wood paneling, fluorescent light that was neither warm nor cold. A judge named the Honorable Elaine Morrison, 60 years old, reading glasses on a chain, a face that gave nothing away. Patricia sat beside Naomi at one table. Marcus sat at the other with his attorney, a sharp-faced man named Gerald Price, who had a reputation for making witnesses feel like they were the ones on trial. Deja sat in the gallery, 3 rows back. She had driven up from Memphis that morning. She was wearing a navy dress, and her hair was pulled back, and she looked, Naomi thought, like someone who had walked through fire and come out smaller but not broken. Devin Holloway was not there. He had submitted his report. His job was done. His chapter, Naomi told herself, was a separate story. Except that when she had walked into the courthouse that morning, he was standing near the entrance. Not inside, outside, on the steps, in a gray coat, holding a coffee. He had looked at her and said simply, "You've got this." She had said, "You didn't have to come." He had said, "I know." She had walked inside before she said anything else that would have been more honest than wise. The hearing began. Gerald Price went first. He was good. He was very good. He painted Marcus Webb as a devoted father who had been denied access to his child through a process he hadn't initiated, hadn't caused, and hadn't consented to. He talked about parental rights. He talked about the presumption in law that a biological father has standing. He said the word fundamental so many times that Naomi counted 7 before she stopped. Marcus testified. He sat in the witness chair with the careful posture of someone who had been coached, and he spoke about Ava with genuine emotion in his voice. He talked about being present at her birth, about the joy of it, about how he had sent money, requested contact, and tried to be involved. He did not talk about Deja. Gerald Price kept him away from that subject like it was a live wire. Naomi watched the judge's face during all of this. She couldn't read it. The judge wrote notes. The judge asked a question about the financial records. The judge was, as far as Naomi could tell, an absolute professional who had done this many times and was not going to tip her hand. Then Patricia stood up. Patricia Holt was something to witness in a courtroom. She moved through the space like it was built for her, and she spoke in a way that sounded like conversation but landed like argument. She walked the court through Naomi's record, 12-hour shifts, still maintaining Ava's schedule without disruption, no missed pediatric appointments, developmental milestones hit on time, a stable, structured home assessed by the court's own appointed social worker with no concerns identified. She entered the documents from the anonymous email, the police report from 18 months earlier, the court record, verified, authenticated, part of the official file. Gerald Price objected. Judge Morrison overruled. She had been waiting for this. Her expression didn't change, but she reached for the documents like she had been expecting them. Then Patricia called Deja to the stand. The room went very still. Deja walked to the witness chair with quiet steps. She sat down. She folded her hands in her lap. She looked at the judge, not at Marcus. "Ms. Carter," Patricia said, "tell the court why you left your daughter with your sister." Deja breathed in, breathed out. Then she told the truth, all of it, the way things started. The first time a comment landed wrong and she told herself she was overreacting. The way the comments became criticisms became something louder. The way she had been made to feel over months that she was fragile and irrational and lucky that a man like Marcus wanted her at all. The night she left, she said, she had packed a bag while Ava was asleep. She had driven to Memphis with the plan of leaving Ava there just for a few days while she figured out how to get out safely. But when she held Ava in the parking lot of Naomi's building, held her and breathed her in, and knew she was leaving her, she had fallen apart in a way she hadn't expected. "I knew Naomi would take care of her," Deja said, her voice steady but thin. "I knew she would love her better than I could right then, because I was broken, and Ava deserved someone whole." "Are you whole now?" Patricia asked. "I'm getting there," Deja said. "I've been in therapy for 8 months. I have a support system. I have a plan to take back my life. And I want to be in my daughter's life, not to disrupt what Naomi has built. I want to be part of it. I want us to raise her together." Gerald Price cross-examined her. He was professional. He probed. He found inconsistencies in her timeline and pointed them out. Deja answered everything. She did not flinch. She did not cry, not until he asked her if she regretted leaving Ava, and she said, "Every single day," and her voice broke on the last word. 2 people in the gallery were audibly crying at that point. Naomi was not one of them. She was saving that for the parking lot. This is the moment everything hangs on. Before we hear the judge's decision, like this video and drop a comment. Do you think Naomi should get full custody, or should Deja and Naomi raise Ava together? I want to hear what you think. Naomi testified last. She sat in the witness chair and Patricia walked her through everything. The night she found Ava, the decision she made, the legal steps she took, the way she had structured her life, her job, her days. Then Patricia asked her the question that mattered most. "Ms. Carter, if this court grants you permanent guardianship of Ava Webb, what do you envision her relationship with her biological parents looking like?" Naomi looked at the judge. "Deja is my sister," she said. "She is Ava's mother. She's not well right now in the way she needs to be Ava's primary caregiver, but she is working on it. If the court grants me guardianship, my intention is to support Deja's relationship with Ava, not to replace it. Deja should be in her daughter's life. Ava deserves to know her mother." "And Mr. Webb?" Patricia asked. Naomi paused. She was honest about this pause. She let it sit. "If Marcus Webb demonstrates through a court-monitored process that he is safe and stable for Ava to be around, I would not stand in the way of a supervised relationship. But I will not put that baby in an environment that isn't safe. Not now, not ever." Gerald Price cross-examined her. He was sharper with her than he'd been with Deja. He pressed on the legality of her initial decision not to call CPS. He questioned whether her guardianship had been a power move, not a protective one. "Ms. Carter," Gerald said, "isn't it true that you have become attached to this baby, that your judgment may be colored by your own desire to keep her?" Naomi looked at him. "Yes," she said. He blinked. He'd expected deflection. "I love her," Naomi said. "I love her completely. And yes, that colors how I feel about her well-being. But it does not color my ability to think clearly about what she needs. I am a pediatric nurse. I have watched parents make decisions from love and from fear and from selfishness and from wisdom. I know the difference. And what I want for Ava is not what I want for me. What I want for Ava is what she deserves, which is a safe, stable, loving place to grow. That is what I am offering. It is the only thing I am offering." Gerald Price sat down. Judge Elaine Morrison took a 30-minute recess. Those 30 minutes were the longest Naomi could remember. She sat in the hallway outside the courtroom with Patricia on one side and Deja on the other. Mama Ruth, who had driven up that morning, drove up in her Sunday church coat and her good shoes because "my grandbabies need me there," sat across from them with her Bible in her lap and her eyes closed. Nobody said much. There was nothing left to say. At one point, Deja reached over and took Naomi's hand. Naomi squeezed back. They sat like that until the bailiff came out and said the judge was ready. Judge Morrison returned to the bench and settled in and looked at both tables for a moment before she spoke. "This case," she said, "is not simple. I want to be clear about that. Anyone who believes family court is simple has never sat in this chair." She looked at her notes. "The court has reviewed the home study, the submitted documentation, the testimony of all parties, and the report from the appointed social worker. The court has also reviewed the submitted court and law enforcement records pertaining to Mr. Webb's prior history, which, while not resulting in conviction, constitute a pattern of behavior that this court takes seriously. Marcus, across the room, went very still. The court finds that the biological mother, Deja Carter, is actively engaged in therapeutic and recovery programming, has demonstrated commitment to rebuilding her capacity to parent, and has expressed a clear intent to be present in her child's life. The court commends that effort and looks forward to monitoring its continuation. Deja exhaled slowly beside Naomi. The court also finds, Judge Morrison continued, that Naomi Carter has provided a stable, nurturing, and demonstrably loving environment for Ava Webb over the past 11 months. The social worker's report indicates no concerns regarding the home environment or the child's development. The judge set down her notes. Therefore, the court grants permanent legal guardianship of Ava Ruth Webb to Naomi Carter with the following provisions. 1. Deja Carter shall have regular scheduled visitation, increasing incrementally as determined appropriate by a family therapist to be agreed upon by both parties. 2. Marcus Webb shall have supervised visitation of no more than 4 hours per month, monitored by a court-appointed supervisor, subject to review in 6 months based on compliance and conduct. 3. This order is subject to annual review and may be modified as circumstances change. Judge Morrison looked at Naomi directly. Ms. Carter, she said, this court is placing significant trust in you not just to care for this child, but to do what you said you would do, to keep her connected to her family, to prioritize her needs over your preferences. Can you make that commitment? Yes, Your Honor, Naomi said. Her voice was completely steady. Good, the judge said. This court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, the March sun was cold and bright. Naomi stood on the steps and let it hit her face for a moment. Deja was beside her. Then Deja's arms were around her, tight, the way they used to hold each other as kids when things were hard, back on Glendale Street. Thank you, Deja said, into Naomi's shoulder. I know that wasn't just for me, but thank you. It wasn't just for you, Naomi agreed. It was for her. I know, Deja said. That's why it means more. Mama Ruth appeared and wrapped both of them in her arms with the particular strength of a woman who had held things together for decades and knew exactly how to do it. I told you, Mama Ruth said, her voice thick. God didn't bring you this far to drop you, either of you, I told you. Naomi laughed, and this time she let herself cry too right there on the courthouse steps, in her grandmother's arms, with the cold March sun and the whole hard year settling down around her shoulders. Patricia found her 20 minutes later, composed and businesslike as ever, to run through the next steps: paperwork, timelines, scheduling. Keisha had shown up from nowhere because Keisha always showed up and was already typing things into her phone. And Devin Holloway was still there, sitting on the bottom step, coffee long since finished, watching the street. Naomi walked over. You waited, she said. I did, he said. The case is closed, she said. You know that. You have no official reason. I know, he said, standing up. He was taller when he was standing. She had noticed that before. It was still true. So why are you still here? She asked. He looked at her steady, direct, the way he'd looked at her in that consultation room when the conversation was hard. Because I wanted to know she was okay, he said, both of them. She's okay, Naomi said. They're both okay. Good, he said, and then quieter, and you. Naomi considered this. I'm the best I've been in a year, she said honestly. And I'm exhausted, and I need to pick up my baby from Miss Gloria's, and I haven't eaten since yesterday morning, and I might be a little emotionally destabilized. Okay, Devin said. Do you want company for any of that? She looked at him for a long moment, long enough that Keisha, visible in the background, had apparently frozen with her phone halfway to her face in an expression of pure, unblinking anticipation. Yeah, Naomi said, I think I do. The months that followed were not easy. Nothing that matters ever is. There were court check-ins and therapy appointments, and the particular administrative maze of legal guardianship that Naomi navigated one form at a time. There were the first supervised visits between Ava and Marcus, which were tense and careful and monitored, and slowly began to show what was true and what was performance. There were Sunday dinners at Mama Ruth's, with Deja there now cooking badly and laughing about it, and holding Ava with a gentleness that was growing steadier month by month. Ava began to recognize her, to reach for her, to say, at 13 months, with perfect timing, Deja. It was not Mama, it was not what Deja had dreamed of, but it was real, and real was something she could build on. Deja got a job at a music venue in Memphis, not as a performer, as an events coordinator, which turned out to suit her perfectly because it involved all the creativity and chaos she loved and had actual hours and a paycheck. She was good at it. She was very good at it. I told you, Mama Ruth said, watching Deja on the phone one Sunday, laughing about a logistics problem completely in her element. That girl could do anything she put her mind to. Yeah, Naomi said, she really could. Marcus was a harder story. The supervised visits revealed what the courtroom had hinted at, that Marcus was not a monster, not exactly, but that he was a man with patterns he hadn't been forced to confront and wouldn't until the space to avoid them closed. The visits were inconsistent. He missed 2 in the first 6 months. When he came, he was sometimes present and sometimes elsewhere in his mind, restless and distant in a way that Ava, with the instincts of children, picked up on and didn't trust. At the 6-month review, the court did not expand his visitation. He was given another 6 months under the same terms. His attorney told him to use the time well. Nobody could make that decision for him. That Naomi understood was the hardest truth of all. You could set up every structure, every safeguard, every system, and at the end of it, a person either chose to do better or they didn't. She had done what she could, the rest was up to him. Ava turned 1 year old on a warm August morning, the same way she had arrived, loudly and fully, and with opinions about everything. Naomi threw a party, nothing extravagant. Miss Gloria came, and Keisha came, and Mama Ruth drove up with a coconut cake, and Deja drove up with balloons and a stuffed elephant that was nearly as large as Ava herself. Devin came too. He brought a card and a book about shapes and colors that Ava immediately tried to eat, which he took as a sign of success. He and Naomi had been taking things slow. Intentionally, carefully slow. Both of them had learned, one way or another, the cost of rushing towards something that wasn't ready. They were building something small and careful and real, and it was the most interesting thing happening in Naomi's life that wasn't Ava. Which was saying a lot, given that Ava had recently learned to walk and was using that skill to get into literally everything. At the party, Ava sat in her high chair with her birthday cupcake and stared at it with the focused, serious expression she had inherited directly from Mama Ruth. She considered the cupcake. She looked at the adults watching her. She looked back at the cupcake. Then she plunged her entire face into it. The room exploded with laughter. Naomi stood back for a moment and looked around. At Mama Ruth, crying happy tears with a piece of paper towel she was using as a tissue. At Deja, laughing so hard she had to hold onto the counter. At Keisha, recording everything. At Devin, standing near the window, watching Naomi with a look she was still learning how to receive. She had not planned any of this. She had not chosen this particular life. It had chosen her. On a rainy Tuesday night, in a spare bedroom, with a pink blanket and a handwritten note, and a tiny fist that grabbed her finger and didn't let go. She would not trade a day of it. If this story moved you, if you saw yourself in Naomi's strength, or Deja's courage, or even Mama Ruth's unshakable love, please share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. Here's what this story teaches us. Trust is not something you give once and forget about. It's something you rebuild slowly, honestly, one kept promise at a time. Deja trusted Naomi enough to leave her most precious thing, and Naomi trusted Deja enough to believe she would come back. The trust held even when it was tested, even when it hurts. Betrayal doesn't always look like evil. Sometimes it looks like a man who charmed everyone and hurt you where no one could see. Sometimes it looks like a woman who couldn't tell the truth because she was too ashamed of it. The damage is real either way, but so is the recovery. Love, real love, is not always romantic. Sometimes it's a nurse who rearranges her entire life for a baby she didn't plan for. Sometimes it's a grandmother who drives 2 hours on a weekday morning because her family needs her there. Sometimes it's a best friend who rearranges your bookshelf and asks no questions and shows up every time without being asked. And forgiveness, the hardest one, is not about saying what happened was okay. It is about deciding that what happened will not be the whole story. Naomi forgave Deja for the year of walls and the careful untruths and the crisis that she handled alone until she couldn't. Deja is learning to forgive herself, which is the longer work, maybe the most important work. Ava is too young to understand any of this. She will learn it later. She will learn it in the way children learn the deep things, not from being told, but from watching the people who love her live it out, imperfectly and fully, and without giving up. And maybe that's the whole lesson right there. Show up, hold on, don't give up. God didn't bring you this far to drop you. Thank you for watching, God bless you, and I'll see you in the next story.